The Rock's heartbreaking confession. The Rock just told us the story we never knew we needed to hear, and it changes everything we thought we understood about the man who became the most electrifying force in sports entertainment. Before the millions and millions of fans chanting his name, before the Hollywood empire and the box office records, before he became the people's champion and conquered every mountain there was to climb, Dwayne Johnson was a 15-year-old kid standing between his mother and oncoming traffic, physically stopping Ada Johnson from ending her life on a street where nobody else would have noticed or cared. This isn't a storyline. This isn't a promo designed to get cheap heat or sympathy pops. This is The Rock sitting down with Scott Feinberg of The Hollywood Reporter and ripping open wounds that most people spend their entire lives trying to forget, much less share with the world. He told us about the eviction, the poverty, the crushing weight of being estranged from Rocky Johnson while watching his mother struggle under burdens no one should have to carry alone. He told us about the moment when desperation became action, when Ada walked into traffic ready to let the world solve her problems permanently, and her teenage son had to become the man neither of his parents could be in that moment. Think about what that does to a 15-year-old. Think about the impossible responsibility of saving your mother's life not from illness or accident, but from herself, from the darkness that's convinced her death was better than whatever tomorrow might bring. Think about carrying that memory through every achievement, every championship, every movie premiere, knowing that everything you've built started from a moment where you had to physically pull your mother back from the edge of oblivion. That's not character development. That's trauma that either destroys you or forges you into something harder than steel. The Rock chose to be forged, but the cost of that choice is something wrestling fans never considered when they were chanting "Rocky sucks" or booing his early babyface run. We didn't know that behind the blue chipper smile and the third-generation legacy was a kid who'd seen the absolute bottom, who understood what it meant to lose everything, including hope. We cheered when he turned heel and became the most arrogant superstar WWE had ever produced, not realizing that confidence was built on a foundation of survival instincts most people never have to develop. Every time The Rock told someone to know their role and shut their mouth, every time he raised that eyebrow and delivered a verbal assault that left opponents speechless, every time he stood in that ring radiating the kind of presence that made him impossible to ignore, he was channeling something deeper than sports entertainment. He was proving to himself, to his mother, to everyone who'd ever doubted them that poverty doesn't define you, that eviction doesn't determine your destiny, that the darkest moments don't get the final word if you're willing to fight through them. But here's what really matters about this confession, what separates it from typical celebrity trauma dumping for sympathy and headlines. The Rock isn't using the story to excuse failure or explain away controversy. He's using it to contextualize transformation, to explain why the Smashing Machine's box office disappointment didn't break him the way it might have broken someone who hadn't already survived much worse. Box office numbers can't hurt you when you've already stared down real loss, when you've already lived through the kind of pain that makes professional setbacks feel trivial by comparison. The Smashing Machine was supposed to be The Rock's Oscar moment, his dramatic pivot from action hero to serious actor worthy of Academy recognition. Critics praised his performance as Mark Kerr. Audiences respected the 30 pounds of muscle he added to authentically portray the MMA legend. And wrestling fans saw a side of Dwayne Johnson that reminded them why he became the great one in the first place. Then the movie underperformed. The awards buzz faded, and Hollywood's narrative shifted to wondering if The Rock had miscalculated by chasing prestige over profit. But Rocky didn't spiral, he didn't retreat, he didn't question whether the artistic gamble was worth the commercial disappointment. Instead, he reflected on why he wanted to tell stories in the first place, why transformation and depth matter more than box office totals, why the roles he chooses moving forward need to mean something beyond spectacle. That's the perspective you gain when you saved your mother's life at 15. That's the wisdom that comes from understanding that success and failure are temporary states, but the stories you tell and the impact you make are the only things that truly matter. Now The Rock's preparing to play a mafia boss in a Martin Scorsese film alongside Leonardo DiCaprio and Emily Blunt, trading the physical dominance of Mark Kerr for the subtle menace of organized crime. He's losing weight instead of gaining it during the Smashing Machine press tour, not because he's less committed, but because transformation requires sacrifice in both directions. Building 30 pounds of muscle for one role and then stripping it away for the next isn't just professional dedication, it's a metaphor for everything The Rock's career has represented since he saved his mother from that traffic. Wrestling fans watched Dwayne Johnson transform from Rocky Malavia to The Rock, from the most hated babyface in WWE history to the most beloved superstar the company ever produced. We witnessed the Hollywood Rock heel run that proved he could reinvent himself even after conquering everything. We saw him leave wrestling behind to become a box office king, building an empire that made him one of the most bankable stars on the planet. And through all of it, we never knew that every transformation, every reinvention, every refusal to accept limitations or listen to doubters was rooted in a moment where a 15-year-old kid had to save his mother's life. That's the context the Smashing Machine's financial disappointment needs, the perspective that explains why The Rock isn't devastated or defeated, but energized to tell better stories with more depth. When you've lived through real tragedy, when you've experienced genuine desperation, box office numbers become background noise. What matters is whether you're using your platform to tell stories that reflect truth, that capture the complexity of human struggle, that honor the pain and perseverance that got you to the top of the mountain. The mafia boss role for Scorsese represents The Rock betting on himself again, trusting that his instincts about storytelling matter more than playing it safe with another action franchise sequel. Working with Scorsese, DiCaprio, and Blunt isn't just career advancement, it's validation that the artistic risks are worth taking regardless of commercial outcomes. It's proof that The Rock learned the right lessons from the Smashing Machine's reception, that failure in pursuit of meaning beats success in service of mediocrity. But we can't ignore the deeper question this confession raises about celebrity, vulnerability, and the cost of sharing trauma publicly. The Rock didn't have to tell us that Ada's suicide attempt. He could have kept that story private, protected his mother's dignity, avoided the inevitable exploitation of her darkest moment for content and clicks. Instead, he chose transparency, chose to let the world understand that even the strongest people come from broken places, that success doesn't erase pain, that the journey from poverty and desperation to global superstardom is paved with scars most people never see.